Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Stephanie with another podcast, second episode of whatever I'm going to name this podcast. And I have a special guest here, Allan Tsao. He is a partner with me in the Gator community. He's a partner that can joint venture with me on doing deals and stuff like that. So we're going to have a small conversation about his background, his history, how he get into real estate, and some other questions I have for him. Hi, Allan. How's everything?
Hey Stephanie, how are you? Thanks for having
Good.
me.
All right. All right. Nice to see you. So I want
Likewise.
to jump right in. For the viewers, because I feel like you have a lot of good skills and good information that you can give to viewers and anybody listening in the future. So tell me about your background before real estate, and your passion and what you were doing before, you started getting into real estate, and, why you chose to start even getting into real estate.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with why I chose to get into real estate. Real estate has always been one of those things where I guess when it comes to investments and finances, building out that portfolio or, I guess building your wealth, it's always been a great asset class, right? And it's just one of those things where it's like vegetables or going to sleep early. You know it's good for you, but that didn't necessarily meant that I started right off the bat. I had other pursuits in life. I went to film school, went to
Mm.
film and television, wanted to be a writer director, and worked film, TV, video for a number of years. And but in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to have a part of whatever I was doing inside real estate, but I never got around to it. I was too busy with the artistic pursuits. I was dabbling in like stocks, crypto, other stuff, like everything but real estate. And I was thinking to myself, like, why haven't I started? And I guess part of it was the fear, right? Because, there's so much to learn in real estate. And I guess part of me felt that if I got into it, I would probably want to get into it really seriously. And I knew it needed the time of effort and attention that I guess I didn't think I had at the time. So, but a couple years later, this was like a couple years ago now. From now, um, I decided, you know what, I have to buy something. Like I don't care what it is, just to kind of get my feet in the door. Wet my feet, whatever the case may be. And yeah, so I bought my first home. Unknowingly, it was kind of a Burr strategy thing I was doing. So but I didn't know what Burr was at the time. It was just, I saw a great deal that my agent brought to me. And I was like, oh, I could renovate this and it'll be cool to kind of learn about the renovation process. Because I didn't know what anything cost or like, I didn't even know what a baseboard was,
Mm.
right? So there's so many things in real estate I didn't know, but the only way to learn is to kind of just jump 2 feet in. And the property I purchased, it was small enough where I can learn as I go, but big enough where it wouldn't be a walk in the park. So it's just the right amount of, I guess, as they say, like sometimes you bit off more than you can chew. But I think for this particular example, it was actually just the right uh, bite size where it was challenging enough, but still manageable. But from there, it kind of catapulted me to this sort of passion for real estate, and I just want to do more of it. It was almost very addicting and rewarding because you kind of see things all the time and effort you put into something, it materializes into a finished product. Kind of like for me as a storyteller, I do a lot of screenwriting, create a
Mhm.
lot of content. So you go from an inception of an idea to a finished product, right? So I like seeing that sort of creation. And yeah, real estate is just another rendition of almost, there's an artistry to it that I enjoy as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Um, I do have a question. I hope. Hold on. I believe there is a lax going on. Can you still hear me and see me, Allan?
I can hear you, but you're lagging a little bit. Actually, you're frozen at the moment.
Oh, this is not great. Hello?
Hey,
Is
okay,
it
good.
better?
Well, you unfroze for a second, but then now you're frozen again.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
It kind
Sorry,
of
everybody.
cuts in and out a little bit.
Uh, is it better?
No. But am I frozen on your side?
No, you're
Or
fine.
okay,
Hello?
yeah, I can hear you fine. No lag. The sound wise is perfect. Just the
All right. While I fix myself and figure out what is going on, I would like to know. My question to you is because you just mentioned the Burr method. Can you simplify that and let us know what that is for people who are now getting into real estate who don't know what Burr method is?
yeah.
Just
So
start
Burr
one.
method is I guess a very popular method when you're buying a home to just force appreciation, right? So you're buying a property at a below market price. Um, there's opportunity to make improvements to it. So the first part is buy. The second part is renovation. And after you renovate it, you would rent out the property. That's the second R. After that, you would refinance, and then you repeat. So for me, um, I just saw that particular project that I mentioned before as an opportunity for me to just get into real estate, period. Good deal. I had to put some sweat equity, some work, some learnings. But that's where you get the value add, right?
Wow.
And
Right.
from there, um, because interest rate hasn't been great right now, I haven't refinanced, but I'm, waiting for that opportunity.
Okay.
But in the meantime, that's what kind of got me interested in learning more about other strategies to get into real estate, because I was thinking it can't just be me having to wait for, the Fed to lower the rates for me to kind of get into more deals. There's got to be other
Right.
ways, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what got me into this deep rabbit hole of learnings and eventually finding the Pace Morphe community and some of the many great lessons I've learned so far from the Bay Gator program that we're in, as well as doing sub two deals with sub two students. So yeah, it's been a tremendous experience so far.
Okay. Good. Good. It's. I didn't even know that you had property and you had started. That was your background. So it's good that I'm learning some stuff as we go. I think that's cool that you went from that spectrum to the film industry and so on to real estate and the transition that you're taking and doing a lot because you're always trying to look for a deal and go in and helping us and in the Gator community. Speaking of Gator community, my next question would be: can you tell us what Gator funding, Gator lending is, what we do um, in within
Yeah.
Pace's community?
Yeah, I guess Gator lending, I would say it's kind of a set of creative strategies to kind of leverage money or capital. Doesn't have to be yours. It could be um, sort of outside capital to kind of fund deals within a real estate transaction. And there are quite a few, right?
Right.
Anything from earnest money deposits to wholesalers, where you're helping wholesalers get across the finish line with their deals, right? Um, there's other strategies that, I think as the Gator program evolves, we'll be hearing more of, like credit sponsoring, as well as, there, in addition to sort of the main core of EMD and double closes, where they're more transactional funding and it's within a shorter period of time. A lot of lenders, Gator lenders, they're also looking into gap funding or private money lending on projects, either it's rehab or other deals, like perhaps like a wrap strategy. So it's just a way to kind of you leveraging money to make money, but at the same time helping other um, people within the real estate industry get deals across the finish line. So it's a win-win for everyone. So that's the ideal scenario, right? For any money we lend out, you know, we want to not help just ourselves, but wholesalers, end buyers. You know,
Right.
we want everyone to be happy throughout the transactional process.
Right. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, so my next question is, we get deals that come and go as we're networking within the community. And by the way, I'm sorry, can you still see, is it everything okay with the video? I just
Yeah,
want to make.
everything's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So, we know that we're in the gated community. We're getting deals left and right from people within the community, wholesalers in groups on Facebook or any other groups that we're in, and also outside of networking in person with people at meetups, and we're meeting people all day long. When you come across a potential deal, as we like to call it, potential meaning that it's not under contract yet, it's up for grabs for anybody who wants to take it on. How do you underwrite, and explain what underwriting is to those who are new and again wants to know what real estate is, in the real estate realm?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just about, well, underwriting is about, I guess, when you see a deal, potential deal, you want to see if this is actually a deal, right? And how do you know if it's a deal? Um, I guess the two first things that I look at is A, what the return is, and B, how would my money be protected, right? So I almost feel like how the money will be protected is even more important than the return, right? Because without the protection, whatever promises of a return, it doesn't matter because, there's a chance you might not get anything back.
Right.
So I think the protection of how the funds will be protected and then what the returns are based on the timeline, um, based on the nature of the project. So from there, those are the kind of two basic anchors. And then I think if you see that, okay, it's decent return and the borrower has a way to secure um, whatever he or she is borrowing, then you start kind of looking deeper into the numbers. But those are the two first and foremost things that I look at, just because you could kind of pre-filter a lot of bad deals just by those two things,
Right.
right? And then let's say majority of deals probably don't pass the first two, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Especially the part where how is that fund being secured?
Right.
Um, and it's not necessarily always like the borrower's fault because sometimes they're sort of learning and they're
As they go.
trying to figure out like, okay, like what is the proper way or like the way to do this so that all parties are as safe as possible, right?
Right. Right. Protection's always
So
the best when it comes
yeah,
to.
so it's also up to you as sort of a lender, if you see an opportunity to also kind of work with the borrower to say, hey, like I might not be able to land on this deal because certain things are not there. But the borrower sometimes, are happy that you gave them those pieces of advice. And
Yep.
then they'll go and make sure that on the next deal they'll come back with the necessary information because as a lender you have your lending box, right? There's certain criterias that it need to meet to protect yourself,
Right.
and the number one rule to investing is to not lose money,
Right.
right? So for me, when I look at a deal, any deal, whether it's good or bad, I still consider it a win because it's a way for me to practice and it's a way for me to learn what a bad deal is, right?
Right.
So that when the good deal comes, right away that's a good deal,
The little
right?
red flags, I like to
Yeah, red
call, or the
flag.
raised eyebrows is another thing I like to say sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the red flags will save you a lot of money and
Yeah.
headache, right? Because if you ignore the flags, or because sometimes, we kind of get a little bit blindsided by the promise of the return, right?
Right.
The shiny object.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And you kind of forget to, not forget, but you still have to go through the process of underwriting in a way that so that the return that how attractive the return is isn't gonna sort of be all this the smoke screen, right?
Or overshadow.
Yeah, overshadow the basics of
Right.
what if this deal doesn't go through, or what if the property doesn't sell, or what if the property doesn't rent out. So there's a lot of what ifs, and typically what I like to see is at least two exit strategies,
Okay.
right? In worst case, if I land on something, um, it's protected by a hard asset of some sort, and you have that security blanket, then you're more willing to entertain or look at the different ways you could try to make the deal work. But if a borrower comes and they need money, but they have no way to protect you, um, then that's where those red flags starts to kind of pop up. But just because one deal doesn't work with one person doesn't mean the next deal won't, right? With the same person,
That's true.
right? So, for me, I'm always trying to nurture relationships with people, and we're all learning with every deal that we look at that we do. So, I mean, I love the collaboration aspect and just
Yeah.
learning together, right? Even on bad deals, you're learning together, right?
Yeah. I agree.
And
You
you
go
can
through
sort of
the
instill, yeah, that education to someone else, and
right.
vice versa, right? Like I could bring a deal to someone and they can sort of see it maybe not from different perspective than what I have, and
Right.
they'll see things that I didn't see. And I'm like, oh yeah. And sometimes it's because, oh man, I was like really, the the returns was so attractive, right? That I might have missed certain nuances or details,
Right.
right? Certain deals, it's just structured um, in multitude of layers, right? And you kind of have to peel that onion back a little bit to kind of see the deal from all sides. And that's a great thing about our Gator community is that there's so many amazing people, right? And
Right.
who know what they're doing and sort of so helpful. And for
Yep.
me, I've learned so much from kind of some of the OGs, people who have been in real estate much longer than I have, So I just try to be a sponge, however much of a sponge that is, to try to like pick up as much information as possible. And yeah,
Right. And I like to thank you. I'm going to take this a second to say, like, I like to thank you because, there's been times where one of the recent meetups when I told you I had trouble understanding what a good deal looks like, and you you kind of raise your hands like I'll help you. Just send me a deal. I'll help you underwrite it, look at it, and I like you have been a really big help with that. So I want to put that on camera, how much of a help you have, and I know we're helping each other, but it's a good skill that you have that I'm still slowly learning, and I really appreciate me being able to text you or me be able to voice note you on Facebook or these social media outlets to be able to ask you, what is this? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And it's very helpful. And also with like comping the deal, if you want to, briefly touch on the art of doing that slightly.
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm always want to bring value to people that I come in contact with and work together in. And a lot of Gators have helped me underwrite, look at stuff for me, right?
Right,
So it's only right to pay forward, right?
right,
And we're in this for the long game, right? So I see us doing deals, you know, there- until the day we die or something, right?
right,
Like, because I see real estate being just part of what I do going forward, right?
right,
Sure, there'll be seasons in our lives where we're more active and less active, or we're moving on to different um, projects within real estate. But I'll always see real estate as something that I'm doing. So, and those relationships that we build is that's everything. So
right.
yeah, glad I can sort of help you in any small way so far. And as I learn more and get better, I, hopefully I'll be able to help even more people, or just to kind of give even better sort of advice on even more complicated deals. So,
Right.
but yeah, going back to your question about the, I guess the comping
Okay.
aspect, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's like I equate it to like writing a good story, right? It all starts with the end in mind, right? Like you have to have a good ending to figure out how you're going to start something and see how that
Right.
story unfolds, right? So the ending of a real estate deal would be the after repair value ARV, the exit strategy, right? So you always start with the end in mind. And from there, you kind of work your way backwards from like the ARV
Mm,
to like, what is my investment going to cost, right? Like how much am I looking to make on this deal, right? How much am I going to need to spend on this property to get it to this ARV, right?
right.
Um, what are the fees, the closing costs, maybe assignment fee for the wholesaler, and then after adding in all those line items, and you do your arithmetic, you arrive at, okay, here's what I need to get the property at to make this whole thing work and worthwhile, right?
Okay.
So I always start with ARV, and I start with, okay, what are the exit strategies that I have? If I can't sell this, what else can I do? Can I rent it out, right?
Right.
If short-term rental doesn't work, can I do midterm? And generally speaking, I like to underwrite for short-term just because it's more on the conservative side. And
Short term meaning what? I'm sorry for
oh,
the viewer.
short. Oh, sorry, long-term rental. Yeah,
Mhm.
I like to underwrite for long-term rental just so that it works on the conservative side, so that if that person decides to go midterm rental, or some cases short-term rental in certain regions, that's still allowed. That's
Right.
just all gravy, right? But you want to underwrite, at least for me. Everyone's risk appetite is different, but generally speaking, you want to have a few exit strategies just so that you're protected. And worst comes to worst, um, let's say you're lending money on a property. Worst case scenario, you don't mind owning the property yourself, right? If you
Right.
had to kind of, in that unfortunate scenario where you have to kind of take back the property. But yeah, it all starts with the end, and then you kind of back your way into the what you need to get the
Right.
house at, because every property is a deal at a right number, right?
Right.
It
Right.
just depends on what that right number is and how do we do the math to kind of get to that number.
Mhm. Right. Right. Okay. Now people like to talk about the good stuff with real estate, and something that I see sometimes a slight the slight, not negative, not the bad point, but a little thing is when you do see a bad deal, how do you politely turn it down to the person that is presenting it to you?
Yeah. So the way I go about that is I just ask questions, right? So um, I ask the borrower, hey, what's your plan? What's your exit strategy?
AJ,
Uh,
yep.
how will this money be protected? Right.
Right.
So I ask them questions and I'll let them answer. Right.
Mhm.
So that, it's not necessarily a thing where like, okay, this is the, I mean, it is kind of, you have a lending box, right? Like you have certain criteria that you as a lender, that, I lend on these type of deals, right? Like I wouldn't want my money to leave escrow, right? So there's certain criteria that you have, and sometimes you can just figure whether the borrower is the right fit by asking those questions, right?
Right.
And worst thing you can say is, hey, it doesn't fit my lending box, right? But sometimes, it's a little bit in the gray area, right? So not all bad deals is just like black and white bad, right?
That's
Because a lot of deals are maybe not appropriate or suitable for my situation,
true. Mhm.
but it might be something that someone else might want to lend on.
Right.
So in those scenarios where it's kind of in the gray area, I would be happy to kind of pass it off to another lender, right? Another
Right.
person in our network, right? Because they might see something that I don't, right?
Yep.
But then of course there are just deals that are just bad. So in those situations, I would not pass the deal on to other people. I would be the person to sort of underwrite in. And if people ask, oh, how did that deal, is it worth lending on? I'll just tell that other person, like, hey, I don't think it's a good deal to lend on
Right.
because of Y and Z. But I always have like a reason, right? Like, and that reason is part of that due diligence you have to do
Yep.
to figure out why, right? You don't want to just tell someone like, oh, it's not a good deal. Like,
Right.
why isn't it a good deal, right?
Right.
So you have to be able to justify, or at least I want to be able to justify that, because it's part of my learning as well, right? It's part of my learning. It's part of me able to construe that information to someone else who maybe brought me the deal, right? So that they
Right.
can learn as well. Or if it's a deal that sometimes, because copying, there's and underwriting, there's an art to it, right? It's not
Right.
always black and white, right? A lot of times a property might be in a particular niche market, right? That you really have to understand the market to know whether the deal works, right? And in those situations, we leverage people we know that are in those markets or have done similar deals, right? And they can kind of bring in their expertise and their experience to kind of help to see the deal from all angles,
Hmm.
right? So I think the beauty of just kind of us being in the same group is that we have so many people that can help us vet deals, right?
Yep.
And even I love like the questions that I see, because sometimes we see a lot of VP questions, but
Yes.
I like that because it helps you. It reiterates, right? It's all
Yes.
about repetition, and
Memory.
also
Mhm.
sometimes you know we lose sight of the basics, right?
Right.
Sometimes when you start doing deals, as you evolve, you can kind of do little things here, there, little things there. Maybe sometimes you'll kind of color outside the line a little bit, right? Because you had that
Mhm.
experience, but it's always good to have the basics to go back to, right?
Yep.
To be reminded of that. So that's why sort of those questions that keep coming up, I think it's great because it helps the retention.
Right. And the transparency in the conversation, I always feel is a big importance when it comes to that. Like how you're explaining, like when you, like back to my question on how you politely turn down a deal, being transparent on why this deal may not work. However, there are some deals, like you said, they're not black and white where you can outsource it to somebody else or connect the two people, with this deal. It may not work for you, but it may work for me, and
Yeah,
for
because
an example. But the
sometimes
transparency on,
they right. Yeah, because sometimes maybe my capital's tied up, right? Like I would
Mhm.
love to lend on it, but I can't. But this would be a great deal for someone else, right?
Yep.
And it's just more fun doing deals together with people you're doing deals with, right?
Right. Right.
We're all coming up together and sort of kind of in a similar graduating class, at least as it pertains to like gator lending, right?
Right. Right.
It hasn't been around for that long, so we're all kind of in this sort of first phase of it all, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it just kind of opens your eyes to not just the gator lending specifically, but it just opens your mind to sort of the way you think about business and deals, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
like consulting for equity, for instance, right?
Mm.
It's like, or how do you connect? Um, let's say a person comes to you with a deal and they're looking for funding, right? You
Right.
might not have the funds, but hey, you might know someone with the funds, right?
Yep.
You can be a value add that way. So that's why I said earlier, I guess with Gator lending, it's an ever evolving thing because it just an endless number of ways you can sort of help bring capital to a deal,
Right. Right.
move the deal further along, to where whatever the end game is. So
Mhm. Okay. All right. Um, I have two simple questions for you. As we actually three. All right. So you had told me a while back that you are actually an introvert and you're slowly getting into be an extrovert. Can you tell me like the steps? Because there's a lot of us that are introverts or extroverts. Can you tell the viewers how you are slowly working on that on an everyday basis to be more from an introvert to extrovert when it comes to marketing yourself, putting yourself out there, doing this real estate stuff, and you know doing.
Yeah, I think we're all inherently a little bit introverted, a little bit extroverted, depending on the situation, right? Maybe a
Yes.
60-40 split, 70-30, or 80-20,
Right.
right? And for a long time, I didn't know whether I was an extrovert or an introvert because
I
there are
thought it was
times
just
when
me.
I'm very outgoing and talkative, right? But then
Right.
there are times where I don't want to talk to anybody, even when I'm at a networking event, no less, right?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
often times when I'm at a networking event where I have to literally, just mentally prep myself on the drive there. Like,
Mm,
okay, it's a networking event. I got to strike some conversations,
right.
right?
Right.
But then there are times where I'm like, oh, I'm totally in a mood to talk today, right? So what I've learned, I think, is a gauge that I use, whether someone's introverted or extroverted, is how do you recharge after a long week? Let's say you had a long
Mm,
work, right? You had a grueling week of work, right? And it's end of the week. How do you like to unwind? Do you like to unwind with social gatherings where you get recharged by being around other people? Or
okay.
do you prefer that alone time, right? And a lot of people that I've spoken to who are introverted, they all say they like their alone time. This
Yes.
doesn't really answer your question, but I was just kind of getting into the, I guess, what I think the
How
differences
you go?
between
Yeah.
introvert
Right.
and extrovert, because I wasn't sure for a long time. But I think for me, when it comes to getting out of that shell, even when I don't want to be, on those days where I just want to keep to myself, or like, oh, I don't want to make that call, I don't want to strike that conversation. Um, I started just to think that, you know, having this conversation with someone isn't necessarily just me trying to extract
Mm,
whatever someone else can offer. It's more about what can I offer to someone else,
that's
right?
the truth.
And
Yes.
as Pace always says, leave with value, right? And that really,
Right.
struck with me in that, I'm having a conversation with someone. It's like it it might seem that there's no motivation when you're just trying to maybe get something out of that person, and you have that uncertainty whether they'll sort of kind of respond or reciprocate.
Right.
But if I'm out there just putting out good vibes and see how I can help people, right? That's enough of a motivation where, yeah, you know what? Why not? Let me do my goodwill and
Yeah.
talk to
Yeah.
people, see how it can bring value, and then see their synergy,
Right.
and then go from there. And
Okay.
I think no matter what industry we're in and what type of work we do, whether we're introverted or extroverted, like there's a salesmanship in everything, right? And
Yes.
we have to interact and engage with people. And I think as you, as long as you come with kind of, if you check your ego at the door, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
just try to do good and be helpful. I think going from that sort of perspective helps with my reasons for being more open and say, oh, okay, let me make that call, right? So let me make that call to the seller instead of saying, hey, how can I, get this house for the number and terms that I want? How can I help this seller, right? So I'm calling to help someone, right? So with that in mind, it kind of gives you a little more motivation and fire to want to sometimes do maybe the calls that could be monotonous, or
Yes.
the conversations, or a lot of what we do is outreach, right?
Hmm.
We have meetups, we have networking. Like yesterday I went to a conference down in Atlantic City. I went to a trade show.
Oh,
um,
nice.
I didn't want to go,
Oh,
but you know
it's
that's the
needed.
inner voice trying to stay comfortable, right?
Yep.
But I knew that if I wanted to grow, if I wanted to create more sort of outreach and potential clients and people to work with, friends to do deals with, you got to just put yourself out there, right? And the hardest part of doing anything is showing up, right? But once you show up,
Yep.
once you get that gym, um, the workout themselves is almost not too bad. It's just the getting there is the hard part, right? So for me, I just say, hey,
Right.
what little
Right.
action can I take each day? Um, if today was getting to that trade show, I'm going to focus on getting to that trade show. I'll worry about what happens at the trade show after, but the hardest part is getting there,
Right.
right? And as long as I get there, you feel the energy, the vibration, and the vibes of everyone there. You're naturally going to be more enthusiastic and motivated to chat it up with people and see how you guys could help each other out. So that's exactly the experience I went through yesterday at this trade show. I didn't want to go. I
Mm-hmm.
got there. It was the hardest part, right? I was
Right.
so happy I got there. And then being in, the buzz of the event, you start chatting it up with people. And then you're like, wow, like I I'm glad I came and I
Yes.
had a great time, right?
You get that nice burst of energy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just,
Yeah.
surrounded by people who are just, you know, doing the same thing you are, but
Right.
sometimes even if they're not doing the same thing you are, it's that energy and that spirit they bring to whatever it is they're doing, and it's contagious.
Right.
What I learned yesterday is that at a trade show, there's so many different types of businesses that you don't think there's synergy.
Right.
There's synergy. There's always some commonality um, that might not seem like there is from, I guess, from the cover, right? But when
Right.
you open the hood, you realize, wow, there's actually a lot more things in common that these businesses have than originally, anticipated. So I always go in with an open mind, and yeah, and I also try to not have expectations, right?
Right.
So it's you're just there to meet people, to make new friends, right? And to learn something new. So worst case, like I went to a trade show I never been to, it was a new experience. Like that's pretty cool. So I look at it from there. Every day is a new adventure. So
Yes. I like the fact that you touch on kind of being in this real estate business or any business and like wanting to give information and not really wanting or feeling the need to get something back. I grew up like that, like doing stuff for the better good and putting out into into the universe and just letting it come back naturally, not doing something or giving out information just for a return. In real estate, you kind of do want to do a deal, yes, but the steps that it takes to get there, it's you don't have to go that. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, but a more of a, you give more than you receive back. And definitely putting yourself out there. I like that you touch on that. Putting yourself out there and getting out your comfort zone is very extremely important in this business, on a daily basis, weekly basis, like a consistent basis. It's real. I'm glad that you really touched on that as an introvert and going to extrovert. So thank you. I can't believe we've already did almost 40 minutes. Can you believe that, Allan?
that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and I need to give you a shout out for inviting me into the Northeast Gator group, right?
Oh yes, I did. I forgot.
Yeah, you reached out, and
Yeah.
I want to thank you because it kind of snowballed into this relationship we have now, right?
Yes.
with,
Yeah.
with the group, and all the connections I've made and all the learnings I've had. And I feel like if anyone is sort of on the fence about joining Gator or like Sub 2,
Right.
this is not like a plug, but the course itself, as great as it is, and
Hmm.
it's amazing because you learn so much. Like even better is the community,
Yes.
the people that you meet. Because think about it, we would never cross paths otherwise, right?
Right.
Like
Oh, it would
everyone,
be if we did,
everyone,
it would be something totally different,
yeah.
probably.
I mean, think about it. Everyone that we're talking with on the regular, from sunrise to sundown into the wee hours in the morning, that chat, there's never not a 20-minute gap where there's not some activity going on, right?
Right.
We're all talking about deals. We're all talking about stuff we're working on, right? Asking questions, like
Yep.
comparing notes, right?
Yep.
And it's been probably the most valuable thing since joining this group. And, I want to thank you for, being part of that and sort of making that introduction for me to kind of, yeah, be in that group with you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I can't.
You're a great connector.
Yeah. Thank
See,
you.
like, yeah. So you're like an introverted connector. For me,
That's
like, I probably wouldn't have been as active with sort of linking people like, oh, hey,
right.
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 But after you sort of kind of led the way and kind of showed me what can be done, yeah. So like when I speak to other, let's say on the Elephant Challenge, where there are new potential real estate investors who want to join Gator, you know,
Right.
it's an opportunity for me to kind of like, okay, okay, so Stephanie, she kind of showed me the way, like, she's
Yeah.
connecting me to other Gators, because it's hard to do real estate by yourself, right? Or anything worthwhile in life worth doing
Right. Right.
is not easy to do, and you go much further and faster with
Yes. When you do it together. Yep.
when
Amen.
you go with partners, right?
That's right.
And collaboration. So that's that's a beautiful thing we have in the group. So
Yes.
yeah,
I'm a shout out Daniel Wang on that one because he's the one who helped create that chat and started bringing all the Gators together. And then once I saw him started like adding people, I was like, hey Daniel, this person, I see that they live, Bronx. This person lives in Connecticut. Then that was back to just seeing something and
yeah,
tag teaming people in. So yeah, it's great, but I couldn't even do none of that if Daniel didn't even put that Northeast chat together. So hopefully we can interview him separately because he's a wealth of knowledge.
yeah. I mean,
Everything.
he's taught me a ton,
Yeah.
and
Right.
yeah. I mean, I really consider him like leader within
Yep.
Gator. I know technically he's not in sub two, but he helps out so many sub two and Gator students,
Yes.
and he's the type that, he prefers to work in the background,
Yep.
like, but he's offers so much tremendous value. Same thing with Frank,
Yep. Frank Leon. Yes.
and
Yes.
Frank, the dynamic duo,
Yep.
that are just kind of leading the charge, right? Like answering all our questions.
They're like the
And
Blues Brothers of.
yeah, exactly.
I'm
And
gonna
for
call them
me,
that. Let me see if
I'm
they.
just trying to like pick up as much information and knowledge from them, and then
Yep.
whatever stuff that has clicked for me, I try to just pay it forward for people who are, you know, newer, or sometimes the concepts, it takes a few times to click, right? I
A
know
few
for me,
rehearsals before you get to the final stage, right? Get
yeah.
back to
So
your
I'm
filming.
always so kind of like, I got it, because once you click, you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. I want to be able to tell everybody, because I want everyone. It's almost that, it's that transfer of knowledge, right?
Yep.
That,
Yep.
because you're so excited about what you're learning, that you feel like everyone needs to know this, because it's too good to be kept, for yourself, right?
Right. Right.
Especially for us who are doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people in Gator that are leading by example.
Yep.
Yourself, Daniel, Frank. So I'm just trying to learn from you guys as well. And then see how I can do better by helping other people. Because sometimes, as an introvert, sometimes you avoid. You sometimes, I know I like to be comfortable sometimes, right? So it's like, but I want to do better by helping people even when it's inconveniencing for me.
Yes. Right.
Because
Right.
it's easy to help people when it's convenient, right?
Right.
But how do I just, again, check my own ego right? And just put out the good vibes, put out good information,
Right.
and just be someone who's there to help. So that's been a tremendous sort of mind shift for me joining this group. So I would say between the mind shift learning, the connections, the community that we're in together, like those alone are multiple times the cost of entry, right?
Right. Right.
And plus, on top of that, you do like one deal, it's like,
Pow.
yeah, pal, right? Like,
The Big Bang.
yeah, it all pays for itself. So,
Yep.
yeah, so I'm glad I took the plunge. So,
Okay. I'm going to wrap up. Is there any advice so my two questions, any advice you have for any people um in general, or any newbie gators or people in getting into real estate, any tips for them that you haven't brought already? Because you brought a lot. We have almost 50 minutes worth of what you
wow, I
brought to
didn't feel like
the
15
table.
minutes, but I guess I
And
rambled a lot.
no,
I
you're
rambled
fine,
more than I
because
thought I would.
when Pace had actually, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna diverge from what my question, but when Pace had told us that he wanted us to really start getting into podcasting and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and really like branching this off and putting out public, I was nervous. My first guest is my battle buddy Sheila. I wanted you to be my second guest, and it was off of the strength of you're always helping. Everybody does help me. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. There's a lot of people on a daily basis that help me, but I definitely wanted you to be my second guest. The fact that you came on and we sat here and tried to figure out this whole technical stuff with the camera, and we've went from what I thought was going to be another 20-minute episode to now 50 minutes. This is great. I am very happy and thankful that you came on. But back to my question, any advice that you can give, and where can people find you if they want to contact you or do deals with
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. First of all, feelings mutual.
Thank
In
you.
terms of advice for new gators, I would say
Or
definitely
anybody in
watch.
real estate. It doesn't have to be necessarily Gator
Yeah.
related. Sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off, but
As it pertains to Gator, I would say definitely watch the course, right? Take the time to learn the concepts, because
okay.
it is a lot to take in, right? I know it's hard sometimes to resist getting the course today and wanting to do a deal tomorrow, right?
Right.
But there's so many steps within the steps of lending money, doing real estate deals, that you don't want to just you want to take action, right? You want to take action, because as you're going through the courses, there are steps you need to take. Certain things you want to set up, certain things you want to start doing outreach, getting on a call with like an agent or a direct to seller. Like, you're taking action, right?
Right.
Underwriting deals, learning how to comp deals, like all those are necessary action you have to take, and not just watch the course, right? But
Right.
you also need to take time to really understand the concepts before
Yes.
you jump into a deal. Because
Yep.
what I also heard and seen is that there are certain newer gators who are jumping into deals and they're not fully grasping the idea, or they're not seeing the whole deal, right? And by the time they jump into a deal, it's too late, because let's say their asset wasn't protected, or the comps, the market comps aren't really supporting what was pitched,
Right.
right?
Right.
Or maybe it was like, I'll tell you what, when there was a deal that a sub-2 deal I wanted to buy a couple months ago,
Right.
and the numbers look really good, and but I was lucky enough to kind of have quite a few sub-2 students around during that particular weekend,
Okay.
where I can get some feedback. And one of the OG sub-2 students kind of gave me feedback and sort of helped me not get this deal.
Mm.
At the time, I didn't understand it,
Right.
but then I realized that's where the art of the comp is, where
Yes.
understanding the particular niche market, that it might look good on the outset, but that number might not necessarily be what you'll actually get. right?
When you break it down, yes.
Right. Times have changed. It's pretty much like midterm rental traveling nurses in a particular market where traveling nurses, they're still around, but it's not like it was at the height of COVID, right?
Right. That's true.
So it's like little things like that where, I took the time. It looked really attractive. I was ready to go, right? But
Right.
I decided to, you know what, going back again to that investing rule number one is to not lose money, right? I'd
Yes.
rather, even on a bad deal, if I don't fund the bad deals, that means I won because I didn't lose money.
Amen. Pace taught us
So,
that. That's the truth.
yeah, absolutely. So for me, I would tell newbies is that learn the course, be active in the groups, right? Like talk to more of the elder statesmen, women of the groups, right? Just
I like
have,
to call them seasoned. That's my
yeah,
favorite.
yeah, exactly, seasoned, right? The veterans, and just really understand what a bad deal is.
Right.
Because once you understand what a bad deal is, like when that good deal comes up, like you'll see it right away because you've been just swimming in a sea of bad deals, and then when that one shiny, you know, when that shining deal comes, that's truly a shiny deal,
Right.
right?
Right. Or the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, then you'll be able to quickly gauge and like pull the trigger on, right?
Right.
So I would say take action and sort of getting your, let's say you're a gator lender, take the action to make sure you have your funds in place that you want to lend out, right?
Okay.
Be ready for it, but don't be so quick to pull the trigger at the first deal that you see or the
Right.
second deal, right? Like run it by people that can help sort of verify the comps for you, right? That's why we have the groups that we do,
Yep.
right? And have those conversations because sometimes when you talk it out loud, you realize, oh yeah, you know what? There was something that it kind of went over my head, but now that I'm discussing it out loud, you realize, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like this is why I probably wouldn't want to land on this deal. So, and you can always learn from other people's experience, right? It doesn't have to be your own experience. Meaning, like deals that I see other people that have lended on that are like, oh, okay, this is what makes it a good deal. Okay, taking notes, right? Or like, why did this person pass on this deal?
Right.
Or sometimes people in the group bring in a deal, right? I'm always watching closely as well because it might not be my deal, but I'm learning what doesn't work on someone else's deal because that scenario can apply to me, right? I could probably encounter a similar deal, and now that I've seen a similar deal, I can apply it to mine and realize, okay, like this might not work or this could work if, what would have to be true for this deal to work, right? And you kind of start peeling back the layers and kind of really dissect it that way.
Okay. Listen, it has been a great pleasure. I'm so honored that you came on here and spoke. You touched on a lot of good topics. I really appreciate it. How can people contact you?
They can find me on Facebook with my name, Allan Tsao. Also on Instagram, it's Tsao Bro. That's TSAO. My last name, TSAOBRO, on Instagram.
Okay. Allan, I think we got our power hour. I think I'm gonna title this the Power Hour. This was really good. I
Well,
thank you.
had, great questions,
Thank
and
you. Appreciate it. Second
yeah,
podcast that I didn't name yet, but we'll
no, that's amazing. That's amazing, and thank you so much for having me, and to kind of put me on number two after your battle buddy.
Yeah. No, I needed you on here. There's a slew of people that I need on here, especially the ones that I closely. We all have something to bring to the table, which every time I'm meeting someone at a meetup, on the phone, text messaging, on Instagram, Facebook, there's a piece of knowledge that someone has even before this. Everybody's experience they had before we all met at whatever point we met each other. It's like a 360. Somebody has some kind of something to bring to the table, and I like that, and it's great. It's amazing. All right, so hopefully, thank you all for whoever's viewing this for the future. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you can gain a lot of insight, information, and it helps you on your further journeys. Allan, thank you again. Also, before I end, shout out to Pace Morby
Yes.
on
Without
all of
Pace,
this.
we wouldn't have met. Without Pace, we wouldn't be here
Right.
talking about real estate and being on a podcast. And first of many, right? I
Right.
see you hosting. I'm expecting new episodes at least once a week from you now because you're such a natural.
I don't know about
And,
that, but okay. Maybe a month. Maybe once a
yeah,
month.
okay. I'll give you 2 months.
Because I want to also touch on real quick, because we about to anyway get on it at exactly an hour. But I really like the fact that we are all trying to do this and really like doing what we have to do while still working our regular job. Some of us have 2 or 3 jobs. Some of us have kids and other situations, being a caretaker or whatever it is. So the fact that we're all trying to get in this and help each other in the process and do it honestly,
Yeah.
we about to
We're
rock.
all here to uplift each other, right?
That's the
And
right.
we all have the same goal and vision, right, of where we want to be in 10, 20 years. And this is a great stepping stone to a lot of great things that I see happening in the future. So thanks for being part of my journey too.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully you'll look back at this and we'll, we know what to do. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. We're gonna end. Thank you, Allan. Gator community, Northeast Gators, whatever Gator you are, wherever you're at. Let's do deals together. Sub 2 community, shout out to you all. Pace Morby, you are a blessing. And the whole Pace, everybody's team with Pace. Thank you and have a great day or evening.
All right.